Hello again. Today we are going to talk a bit about nonverbal immediacy or nonverbal behaviors. If you remember Mehrabian, the famous psychologist who actually defined first what immediacy is, and if you recall, immediacy is the level of closeness between teachers and students. He claims that 93% of the meaning in human interaction comes from nonverbal messages and only 7% from verbal messages. If this is so, and we believe that this is so, why then people nowadays so much like, and actually they prefer media of communication in which nonverbal clues are eliminated? We are witnesses of how Facebook and Twitter and other social networks get on popularity day by day, as well as simple SMS messages. Why these media are so popular when we know that very much of the meaning in the interaction comes from nonverbal messages? I would say that exactly because of this great percentage of the meaning that is conveyed through nonverbal messages, when we communicate through media where nonverbal clues are eliminated, it's easier to say anything because of the lack of face expression, body language, all other expressions, and it's easy to convey something through just pure language. Maybe you have noticed when communicating that sometimes it is easier to say something in the other language, not your mother tongue, maybe in the second language or in the foreign language. Probably the popularity of SMS and Facebook comes because of this. Nonverbal behaviors or messages have many functions, and here are listed some of the functions of nonverbal behaviors. They can communicate warmth and affect. Here the term affect, like the adjective affective, refers to all kinds of feelings or emotions. So the affective component of messages is related to emotions. Then they can indicate approval and disapproval. They can define the nature of the relationship. They can indicate the power and status. They can reveal current emotional states. They can regulate and pace verbal exchange, provide cues for impression formation. They can also influence and persuade. They can reveal our level of tension or relaxation according to our body posture. They can indicate to which culture we belong, what are our values, attitudes, what is our gender and background, and eventually they can influence the performance of others. If we could have a chance to discuss this in a real classroom, we would probably discuss different ways how these functions can be manifested. For example, if we take the fourth component, indicate power and status, I would ask you in which way power and status can be manifested through nonverbal behaviors, and the answer should be that probably people who have higher status and who consider themselves with power, they have a very powerful attitude. Maybe they are their posture, their body language indicates a high level of self-confidence, and it is conveyed through the way they act. many other things, maybe like when we speak about gender, for example, and we'll see later that one study conducted among students in the US showed that female teachers tend to smile more than male teachers, and maybe because of that female teachers are taken to be less serious than male teachers. Here we have the definition of nonverbal immediacy. It will be those nonverbal behaviors that indicate positive affect, and in this way they contribute to the level of closeness between teachers and students. And among them we could list the eye contact, smiling, leaning toward the person, gesturing, using overall body movements, being relaxed, and spending time with someone. And civically, an author which is very much quoted throughout this course states that nonverbal behavior, which is a communication process poorly understood and controlled by most teachers, can greatly enhance the image of the teacher and the affective learning of students. Here we refer again to the affective learning, affective domain, because we have mentioned previously that learning is higher and more successful when students are engaged in it totally, when they like the subject and when they like the teacher as well. For example, the general attitude of students toward the content area motivates them to use that knowledge in their future lives. And as an example here, we have put that in any disciplines, teachers are not only interested in cognitive learning, what happens, the learning itself, but they're also interested in creating positive student attitude or affect toward the whole content and the discipline. Like when we teach literature classes and when we teach a poem or a novel, it is not our aim only to enable students to understand the message of that novel or that poem, but we hope that students will develop ability to understand and to develop the culture of reading, and we will develop general like towards literature and art in general, because our aim is not, as educators, is not only to teach our content area, but to educate students and to contribute to their development into mature adults. Very important nonverbal behaviors, I would say the most important, are the facial expressions. And here I have decided to put a quote by Anderson and Anderson, who say that students respond best to teachers who are approachable, caring, and friendly, and how these qualities of teachers can be manifested normally through their nonverbal behavior, through their facial expressions. Here we mention again this study of the use of smile with different gender, male and female. And this study revealed that due to socialization patterns, men internalize their feelings. Internalization means they mask their feelings, they neutralize them, And women externalize their feelings, they intensify and they show them more. And the result is that female teachers tend to smile too much and male teachers tend to smile too little. Under socialization patterns, here we understand patterns that develop through the stage of growing up. Usually, almost always, when we have baby boys and when they cry, we tell to them, don't cry, men don't cry. And then with the time, men learn not to show their feelings because they think that it's not masculine enough to show feelings. There is a rule here about smile, because we always recommend smiling, but there is a rule which says when you want to be taken seriously, put on a serious expression, calm expression. But when you want to be considered likable and approachable, put on a smile. And if you stick to this rule, you shouldn't have problems in class or anywhere else. Another component of nonverbal behaviors is the vocal expressiveness. Under vocal expressiveness, we understand the variations in how teachers speak using different pitch, rate, volume, and tone. Probably under pitch, you know here that we refer to the intonation going up and down in our tone. And you would agree that flat voice without changes in pitch and intonation is dull and monotonous, and students easily get bored with such a vocal variety. That's why we need vocal variety, which is the interaction of pitch, volume, rate, and pauses. And good vocal variety is the judgment made when the result is an interesting, expressive voice, as in contrast of dull, monotonous voice. I would like especially here to draw your attention on the use of pauses and silence. Usually as teachers, we are afraid of silence in classroom, and that's why we try to fill in the silence with talking, and the result is an excessive amount of TTT, teacher talking time. Usually, even when we ask questions and they are addressed to students, we are not patient enough to wait to allow enough silence time for all students to think. If we don't get the response immediately by the stronger students, we tend to give the answer ourselves. We should avoid such situations, and probably in order to give equal chances for all students to express their opinion, we should say, this is the question, you have 3 minutes to think about the question, and then I will ask somebody to give me the answer. In this way, we encourage all students to try to say something, and not only the ones who are the quickest. Another component that has also influence on the level of immediacy between teachers and students is the physical appearance. And you would agree that what we see at first sight is very important for the impression. I decided here to put the results of 2 studies that examined the effects of clothing of teaching assistants on their credibility. And the first study found that perceptions of competence were directly affected by dress. The more casual the dress, the less competent the teacher was perceived to be. When I discussed this with my online class, students, your colleagues said that this was an old study in 1996, and maybe then the whole setting was more traditional. If we could repeat this study in today's conditions, probably we would get different results. Maybe times have changed and now students prefer more casual appearance. But another study, which was not very old, from 1997, found correlations between the clothing of the teachers and student learning, and learning increased with professional appearance. What do we understand by professional appearance? Probably some neat, tidy look, maybe not necessarily a suit and a tie, but something decent and good looking, probably. Then, under gestures and body movements, it's worth to mention that a frontal positioning of the body is essential to the establishment of personal and interpersonal communication, and the teachers must ensure that they are facing the students while listening or talking or lecturing, and then even when they write on the board, they should just partially turn their back to students and try to write half facing the board, half facing the audience. The top level of mutual understanding between the sender of the message and the receiver of the message, and in this case between students and teachers, is the so-called mirroring. When the two participants of the communication process understand well each other, then the phase of imitating or copycat movements appear between speakers and listeners tend to imitate all the movements of the speakers. This is the end of the presentation.